You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
I've been hesitating to hit record because the past couple times we've recorded, that's when the cats decide they need to go nuts.
Yeah, and they were just on the verge of that just now.
Yeah, thankfully ended up stopping Annie from jumping across the table like she was in a knife fight or something like that.
Over, like, so much stuff is on this table, like chargers and computers and notepads and...
Yeah, I mean, the important stuff's pretty secure, so not really worried about that, so long as people keep their computer lids closed.
Right.
But anyway, you are talking to the podcast making, public transit taking, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, Tim the nerd, and sitting next to me we have the vivacious, the beautiful, the effervescent, the ebullient.
Ooh.
Professor Aubrey. How you
Hi
doing?
there, Tim. Ebullient. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, I figured, it's wise to come up with multi-syllable words, every week.
So it makes you sound smart.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I reckon.
I reckon so.
But yeah, we are wrapping up our marathon recording week here, and which leads you as close as you can be to Burning Man without getting any burns.
Yes.
Are you excited?
Very close, very close. So less than 36 hours, perhaps. No. Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday morning. So, I don't know, 48.
But you'll be officially out of the house by Tuesday, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm sure you're excited. What is one thing you're looking forward to?
Just seeing the dawn is really, really beautiful there. Like the sunsets and sunrises there are just really magical. Mm-hmm. Super magical. So that's what I'm looking forward to most.
Gonna be taking some photos of the sun?
Well, Burning Man has this thing about participation where it's better to be participating in the thing than to take pictures of the thing. And so taking pictures isn't really something that people do at Burning Man, except the Instagram people, which we kind of look down on. So I don't know how many pictures I will take, but I will take some pictures for sure.
I'm a Burning Man snob.
Well, pretty much.
Well, there you go.
I've gone one time and I'm like, I know how to do it right.
Yeah, she drinks with a pinky out and everything when she's there. Hello.
Hello there.
Yes, but before you left, I ended up getting you a nice present.
Yes, you did. A beautiful present. I love it.
Yes, I have talked on the show before, as well as on Instagram, of my enjoyment of a particular artist. Her name is Catherine Romero. On Instagram, her link is Meow Mix. But
nice.
She loves posting up work of her art, and her art just seems vibrant, seems alive. I'm no art expert by any means, and in fact, this is the first art piece I have ever purchased.
Hey.
Yeah, so
sweet.
Yeah, but she's an artist that I definitely recommend, you all check out in terms of, even if it's just following her work, because she will post it up and getting, a nice little visual of, some of her works in progress has definitely put a smile on my face, and I think it will do the same to other people. And what did you think of it?
I loved it. So it's a tarot card that is the Eight of Swords, which is kind of a depressing card in that it means you're stuck and you can't get unstuck. And, the person is blindfolded and surrounded by 8 swords and sort of tied up.
Kinky.
So it's a cool tarot card, and I love the way she's done it. It's drawing with epoxy over the top, I think. Mm-hmm. on wood.
Indeed. And like I said, folks, if you check the show description, you'll have links to find where you can find some of her work. I've noticed her primarily on Instagram. So, but on her Instagram page, she, gives routine updates as to some of the local art shows that, like outdoor art shows, art fairs and whatnot that she sells her work at. So, cool. Definitely check it out.
Is she from here?
I believe from Texas. She's an immigrant like you and I.
Oh, but she lives here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep. Anyway, just wanted to put that out there, and like I said, again, go check out her work. The professor is the person who saw it as well, so you can tell the folks at home that they will enjoy it too, right?
Absolutely, it's very fun.
Indeed. And speaking of fun, my son, my youngest, he sent me a photo of a purchase that he made when he went thrifting at Goodwill.
Oh yeah, what did he get?
Yeah, he got a radio that had a cassette player built into it, and
those are worth money now. Like movie producers and stuff are looking for them for props.
Well, he'll definitely keep that in mind, I guess. He does love him some money. But but it got me to thinking, about how I used to record stuff from the radio all the time. In fact, even had a show here a while back at the start of the year, Tim's Tremendous Tapes, that was kind of inspired by that whole ordeal. But, man, it was quite the feat to be able to catch your favorite song right away.
And press the buttons fast enough to get the beginning of the song.
Yeah, and you hoped beyond hope that the DJ wouldn't, hey everybody, welcome to you got AC/DC Back in Black, where the traffic is 7 on the 9s, hey,
Right.
Yeah, but
that's a pretty good radio announcer voice.
Yeah, there is sort of a glory day in radio, though, because, like, back in the day, you used to have DJs that would personally pick the music that they would play throughout their entire shift, and now for mainstream radio, it's computers picking out the choices, if there's even a DJ at all. There's an afternoon radio show in Portland, Oregon here, that's run by AI.
Wow.
Which, I had some fun with Canva. I showed you a little AI thing that you can do on Canva now to make little videos. And it was a guy, I'm a stuffy businessman, and I welcome you to Friends Talking Nerdy. And it's like the fact that you can, the mouth looked like he was actually talking.
Yeah, it was quite impressive.
Yeah. So, I think that might be what we do for commercials going forward. That might be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Just have ChatGPT print up a script, and then I paste the script in there, and then we have a 30-second commercial.
That's awesome. That's a great idea.
Yes, I have them on occasion, but do you have any memories of taping stuff off the radio?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, most commonly did it while also laying out in the sun. Yes, this is something people used to do for fun, was to go outside when it was hot, cover themselves in oil, and lay under the boiling hot sun. This we did to get tan, because tan was better. I remember somebody telling me that tan fat was at least better than pale fat. So we were all kind of obsessed with tanning, and so you're sitting there listening to the radio, laying down in the sun, and it's a great time to listen to the radio and see what's coming up and call for prizes. So most radio shows would have call in for prizes, call in to request your favorite show or your favorite song. So you'd call and request the song and then wait for them to play it and then record it. Because you weren't doing anything else. You're just laying around for hours.
Yep. Back in the day, yeah, you didn't. It wasn't a matter of typing in the name of a song in an app and boom, it's there. You had to wait. But the cool thing about radio too, at least back in the day, I haven't listened to mainstream radio in a long time, so I don't know if they still do this. But occasionally, they would have specials. They would have concerts that they would play. There was one time that I remembered, and in a lot of ways, I think it was very influential on me. They had a special, the A to Z of guitar. and they went through and found artists that represent every letter of the alphabet from A till Z, and was able to talk about a pretty large swath of rock and roll history that way, which I thought was rather interesting, and introduced me to, you know, like Pete Townshend's solo work. That's the first time I heard Sheridan Gibson, Frank Zappa. That's where I got my sort of introduction to him. I mean, I was aware of him, of course, but didn't really hear his music. But, you know, radio used to be interesting, and I think part of me misses it, but I think part of me also accepts the fact that, you know, we've moved beyond that. I mean, we have our Apple Music, which is great for music, and Apple Music is great because they do have DJ driven stations where, again, the DJ actually curates what is played on those particular episodes. But, you know, for some of the other shows too, I mean, podcasts are picking up the slack quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get really specific with podcasts as well, because people can get real niche in a podcast and really focus on what it is that they really enjoy. And so you can find podcasts very specific to lots of different kinds of music.
And that's what I love about podcasting more than anything. Like the fact that it democratizes the bully pulpit. It gives everybody a chance to, you know, lay their claim, to, you know, put their flag out and to say, this is who we are. And, you know, it's great if people come along, but if you just got a few people come along, that's more than you had before, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like communicating with people in a broadcast way, but your audience is much more specific than a broadcast audience.
There's Mimsy on the coffee table inspecting a piece of art.
Mimsy likes to get places she's not supposed to go, especially when she knows we cannot respond. She's a smart cat.
Yeah. I mean, I do like what thankfully she's not in heat anymore. I'll stop the stammering here. But what I found that will kind of calm her down and distract her is by putting on animal videos on YouTube.
Right.
And she was, you know, sometimes we'll swat at the screen, you know, especially if it's a really fast bird or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, she's just looking at it. And, you know, she'll be there for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And, you know, especially when she's in heat, if you can distract her by, you know, just putting on a quick video, hey, everybody wins. You
ever put on a video of male cats?
No.
That might be interesting.
Oh, man. There's Dick. Where's the Dick? But did you have any favorite DJs growing up?
Well, I listened to a station. So there was a local Maryville station, which is where I lived. And it was called WIVK, Wivik. And their mascot was a frog, Wivik the frog. And they played country music, you wouldn't be surprised to hear. WIMZ was the rock and roll station.
They played Skynyrd?
Yeah, they played Skynyrd and Stairway to Heaven and all that. When I would spend time listening to those radio shows, I mostly was concerned about winning prizes. Like, I was very into winning prizes.
Fuck
like,
the music, I wanted to win.
I wanted to call, and every call in, and you had to be like the 5th caller, or the 7th caller, or the 12th caller, and I would try, and they would actually answer the fucking phone, and they'd say, you're number 3, and hang up.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I've tried with a couple of radio contests, didn't win any. I mean, the only contest I ever won was in grade school. We went out on like a field trip, and they took us to a Burger King. And, you know, the school was paying for it, but they had a little box there, like, put your name in, you win a prize. And I did, and I ended up winning, and it was tickets to go see the movie A Chipmunk Adventure.
Oh my God. Did you go?
Yeah, I mean, the movie's a movie.
Yeah, you like to go to the movies, so.
Yeah. I mean, I very rarely get so offended that I walk out.
Right.
You know, but anyway, I didn't. I did in Sacramento. I think that is the big. It was on the radio station website, but I did win something there, and I was a runner-up. But it was still interesting. It was the time John Fogerty in 2005 put out a box set of his career work, and I didn't win the box set, but I ended up winning Creedence Clearwater Revival's complete discography. Which, I don't know why they just didn't give me the box set, but it was just probably like extra CDs that they had,
Right.
lying around or something like that. But
I definitely won CDs. I won T-shirts. I never won concert tickets.
you didn't win any Eddie Money tickets.
No, I didn't win any Eddie Money tickets, but I do love A Rainy Night.
That's Eddie Rabbit.
Eddie Money, I do.
2 tickets to paradise.
Gonna pack my bags and leave tonight.
Yeah, that one.
I know that one. Is that the only one? Is that his hit?
No, he had a couple. He had the one with Ronnie Spector. Be my little baby, baby, my darling. Ooh, you'll be. Okay, I know. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yes, let's move on, shall we?
But yeah, nonfiction books.
Love them.
Love them too. I mean, as a writer, they are a great way, just as much, if not more so, than fiction books to kind of get an idea of stuff like character. Learning like little colloquialisms you can pick up. Like I did not include this book on my list, but I'll bring it up here. My Life from Bill Clinton. What I said last week, if I wouldn't piss in his brain if his ear was on fire. That was one hell of a line. And just nonfiction books, when they're written right, can like tell you about the person you're reading on, or if they're telling about a time in history. Again, I didn't include this book on my list, but it's a great book to read. Team of Rivals, Doris Kearns Goodwin. I mean, the passion she puts behind that, just like you're in the room with Lincoln in his cabinet, as they're arguing everything out. And I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think they're very important means of passing on history. And I think history is a really important way of preventing bad things that have happened in the past to happen again. So I think they're really important. Like, some of them are really hard to read.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you know like the context of some of them, like the Diary of Anne Frank, knowing where that story is going to end. This is not necessarily the type of book you're going to bring to the beach.
No. Yeah. So there are some very impactful nonfiction books. I also think there's a bunch of crap nonfiction, just like all the for idiots books.
I disagree with you on those.
Oh, you like those? I
do, because they seem simplistic, but they have a lot of information in there. I mean, it's like it's the very first place I would recommend anybody go if they do have like a topic like woodworking. Woodworking for Dummies is going to be a great place to start off to find out what you need to do in order to be as successful as you want to be in that particular hobby.
Gotcha. Well, I've used them mostly for computer programs, and the thing with computer programs is books are a terrible way to try to learn.
Because by the time they publish the book, the program's obsolete.
Or completely changed.
Yeah. For computer software, I agree with you. The idiots books are not the first place to go for that, but computer hardware, different story.
Right. Yeah. So like something about repairing computers, maybe, but something about a particular software package. Like I remember the secret manual for Apple, and there was a for dummies, like Word for Dummies that I had. And it would say how to do stuff, and you try to do it that way, and it wouldn't work because the program had changed. And this was before you could look up on the internet just whatever, it was before every bit of knowledge was already on the internet. Now that every bit of knowledge is on the internet, you could just look up those questions that you have, just watch some YouTube videos about how to do stuff. Like, there are huge replacements for that kind of nonfiction. Like Wikipedia replaces a lot of nonfiction.
Yeah, and to be fair, the few times I have been in a bookstore since I bought a tablet, I have not seen as many idiot guides, books out there, just because of the fact that, you can find a very good source on YouTube that will just give you the information for free. You don't have to spend $20 to be able to get it. But, so what we did this week is compile our list of our 5 favorite nonfiction books, and like we normally do for a situation like this, we're going to go back and forth talking about the book in question and talking about why it made an impact, and if the other person has thoughts too, they will throw them in. So did you want to start this week, or did you want me to start?
Why don't you start this week?
Okay, number 1. This is good light reading here, folks. I, on occasion, depending on the particular president in question, love reading presidential memoirs.
Oh, uh-huh.
And one of the first presidents I ever became fascinated with as a kid, I think I have the fact that Gerald Ford grew up in my hometown to thank for that, was Richard Nixon. And just any type of book on Watergate or Nixon or anything like that I'm probably going to buy or borrow and read from front to last. But it wasn't until my late 20s that I was able to get my hands on Nixon's memoirs.
Oh.
I thought they were utterly fascinating. I can see where somebody else may think it's just a tad dry, because Nixon was not the most, he wasn't Clinton, folks, he was an introvert of my order, so, sitting back and hearing him talk about, his life growing up and whatnot, I could see maybe not for everybody, but, I think the reason why you bought his memoirs and the reason he was paid for it was to hear him talk about the Watergate situation. And it doesn't exactly tell the truth throughout still. He was Nixon after all, but I think this and the Frost Nixon interviews were the closest that we got to hearing I fucked up from this guy. But have you read them, or are you familiar with them?
No, not at all.
Yeah, are you not even familiar with them?
No, not really.
Gotcha. But basically it's a profile of his life from birth until after he left the White House.
Gotcha.
Yeah, very interesting stuff in my opinion, but, is what it is, but go ahead.
It wasn't an autobiography, it was a biography.
It was his memoirs. He wrote it.
Oh, his memoirs that he wrote. Cool.
Yep, so talking about his Quaker upbringing and all of that. The man was a Quaker, and he led us into one of our bloodiest wars, or kept us going in one of our bloodiest wars.
Yeah.
He kind of didn't, include the fact that, it was thanks to him that the Vietnam War, kept on going after 1968. Lyndon Johnson had a peace plan in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
I'll start with another memoir.
Okay.
Because I love memoir as a genre. It makes me really happy. And the memoir I've chosen is called Valencia, and is by Michelle T., who was a sort of radical feminist, sex worker, crunchy, punky kind of person living in San Francisco in the 90s. Maybe the 2000s. And I first read it when I was in law school, and absolutely loved the story and felt really connected to Michelle T. Like, her life was the life I had dreamed I would be able to have. I know I said she was a sex worker and she kind of lived in San Francisco, catch as catch can, but I think if I had decided to move to San Francisco when I was 16 or 18, that I would have had a life much like she did. And she was also a lesbian, so I was, a lesbian myself at the time, so I was really interested in that. It's really good. Have you ever read it?
No.
Yeah. One time, after I loved this book so much, Michelle T. was doing a reading, and I went to her reading, which, I don't go to many readings, but I loved her so much. I went to her reading.
Front row?
Kind of. I was kind of fangirl about it. Yeah, totally. She was so short. And she just was really cute and short. And this is not what I expected. I expected like a Demeter kind of goddess-like person. It was really tall. So then that gave me some context for what had happened in the book that was very interesting. And then one time I was at a charity auction, and one of the things they were auctioning off was the opportunity to have your tarot cards read by Michelle T. So I actually purchased that, but I never got in touch with Michelle to do it. Like, I was too fangirl shy to, like, actually reach out to her.
Uh-oh.
So I never got my tarot cards read by Michelle T, but I could have.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Everybody should check her out. Michelle T.
All right. Shall I go on with my next one?
Yes, please.
All right. Continuing in the vein of Watergate. This is, I think, an important book to read if you want to bone up on knowledge of recent American history, and especially with, what we're dealing with today. This is kind of like the foreshadowing of it all. All the President's Men, from Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. Their detailed description of the early days of the Watergate investigation. They did have a follow-up called The Final Days, which detailed stuff like Nixon talking to the paintings of the other presidents in the White House that Dan Aykroyd ended up making fun of on Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
Yeah. Theodore, you didn't have to do that. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. I think I've seen that for sure.
Yeah, but it's a great short work of prose that kind of throws you into the deep end of what it was like for them, of two young guys that were taking on power, and how just perilous, even for newspaper men in the 70s, it was to fight power like that. Thankfully, we can say that at least Nixon knew when to say enough is enough, compared to certain mango-colored people we're dealing with now. But this is something that I think should be on everybody's must-read, or at least know the basic premise of the story. Watch the movie if you have to. But, to what you said earlier, of those who fail to learn their history often repeat it, And we're kind of seeing that again today. So it's just like, read this book. Read this book. It's reads like a thriller too.
Right. It was very much a thriller for those two. There was lots of, mysterious people and like meetings meetings in the park and.
Yeah, parking lot, but that's an interesting story altogether. I mean, I remember in 2005, I believe, when Mark Felt, announced to the public that he was Deep Throat, and that was like, oh my God, I got to see that. I mean, because like nobody had any real idea who it was apart from Nixon. In the tapes, he suspected that it was him, but never really followed up on, calling him out or firing him. And then, ironically enough, in 81, Mark Felt got in trouble and needed some help, and Nixon ended up putting in some good words for him.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, any thoughts on Nixon and Watergate? Did you read the book?
I did not read the book. I've seen the movie. It's very interesting. I guess I'm not... Those aren't really the kind of politics that I'm interested in. I did read Bill Clinton's either an autobiography or biography.
The one with his face on the cover?
Yeah.
That's it. My Life.
That's his memoir.
Yeah.
I've read that, and it was really interesting to me because I lived through those political times, and understanding the motivations and the characters in a better way really helps solidify that information for me. The thing about Watergate is that I didn't experience it, and as much as I've been told about it and that I've read about it, it is so not as bad as what's happened by politicians. I mean, Trump is the worst, but others since Clinton have been just as bad or worse.
Yeah.
It's just getting more and more... Like, it's almost interesting to me that what Clinton did was so terrible because people didn't respond that way until the Me Too movement about other people acting in very similar ways towards women.
Yeah. He was a scumbag.
Clinton?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
All right. What is your next one?
My next one is Clinton was a asshole. No. I'm going to go with a couple of books. I'm going to start with Guns, Germs, and Steel, The Fates of Human Societies by Jared Diamond, PhD. Mm-hmm. Ever heard of it?
Nope.
Okay, this is a great book. It is about how some societies are privileged over other societies. So, like, some societies dominate other societies. They colonize other places. And other societies don't do that and actually really get defeated at the hands of these other more developed societies. And it's sort of saying why. What was the lottery that they lost or the other people won that made them so successful on a worldwide scale, as opposed to other societies like the Native Americans, who pretty much got annihilated by the Europeans. Mm-hmm. So it is all about how that happens and why that happens. And it's called Guns, Germs, and Steel because those are the things, Europeans developed those relatively early on. They figured out navigation and started going places and created this fiction that white people were somehow different from every other kind of person that did not have white skin. And that if they weren't Christian, they didn't count as real people. So the Christians could come in and take everything from them and kill them and, all in the name of converting them.
Because that's what Jesus said.
Because of Jesus, yes. So, right, guns, very important. European colonizers had guns. Native Americans did not have guns until we came and they got guns from us. So we were ahead on that level. Germs, diseases from Europe are one of the things that annihilated the Native American populations, particularly around the Pacific Northwest. So when Lewis and Clark got here, there were ghost villages where nobody was living in them because all the people who lived in them had died from European diseases. Largely smallpox.
Gotcha.
So by the time Western people got to this part of the world, the Indians had already been dealt with. There were very small communities here that were easily defeated and subjugated. Not counting the Nez Perce. I mean, we do have the Nez Perce in Oregon, Eastern Washington, that, Chief Joseph was the one who said, "I will fight no more forever," when he was finally captured after running from the United States to Canada, across Canada, back down to the United States. I mean, he was basically just running from American and Canadian military forces with his band of, family and friends. Mm-hmm. And he managed to do that for like 10 years and then finally had to give up because his people were starving.
Nice. I mean, well, not, you know what I mean. I don't mean nice and I'm glad they were starving. I'm not saying. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, and the final thing is steel. So the development of steel allows us to build so many things and accomplish so much that we can't without steel. So figuring out how to make steel is a very important part of development.
Yeah.
And at the time, societies in North and South America were focused more on just different ways of developing and not making steel. So they're a little bit more like a Bronze Age civilization. And if somebody comes with steel and swords made of steel, and you have a sword made of bronze, the steel sword is going to cut right through the bronze sword with enough force. So, and anyway, it's just all about how did things end up the way they did.
Nice.
Yeah. It's really fascinating.
All right.
How about your next one?
My next one, been a while since we talked about wrestling on the show, right?
Yeah.
It is very commonplace right now for, various wrestling personalities, retired and not, to have their own podcasts and telling their stories of their career. But that didn't really start getting done really on a wide scale until '99 when Mick Foley published his memoirs, Have a Nice Day, A Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks.
Oh, wow.
It was the WWE imprint, with Judith Regan's label. Judith Regan was not quite reputable person. She's the person that hired OJ to write that book, If I Did It.
If I Did It.
Yeah, wink, wink. Anyway, this book in question, Have a Nice Day, like I said, the first big wrestling memoir that was released, hit #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was that, and really well written.
Nice.
By this point, if you're a wrestling fan, you know Mick Foley's story. His story has gotten out in so many ways, whether various media, videos, TV shows, and whatnot. He has his own podcast now talking about his own life history. But I always enjoyed the experience reading this book. I mean, looking back on it, it was a nice thick book, but I love when you can go through a nice thick book like that really fast. Mm-hmm. When in terms of just you're so enthralled with the story that you just got to keep on going and before you realize it's done.
Yeah, totally. I love books like that.
Yep. And it's one of those things, like, I would recommend it, too, to somebody that maybe doesn't want to watch a wrestling television show, but wants to know a little bit about the life or something like that.
Oh, uh-huh.
Because, he details his entire career from, traveling 2 to 3 hours to go to his wrestling school and sleeping in his car to, headlining a WrestleMania.
Right. Lots of room in between to get into trouble, I assume.
Actually, he was one of the few people in wrestling that, didn't party, got married early on, had kids, had a nice, normal family life. He's a nice guy.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That is, indeed. So what is your next one?
My next one is called Sex at Dawn. How we mate, why we stray, and what it means for modern relationships. Mm. And this sort of came out at the beginning of the sort of polyamory emerging as something that people were willing to even talk about in polite society, right? Mm-hmm. And it essentially is about, at the dawn of man, what was sex like? And how is it just the same today? And so how do you integrate knowledge of sex is this urge, it's not going to go away, it's been with us forever, and it's determined people's relationships. Mm-hmm. So how do you harness the power of that in your own relationships so that you're living in harmony with your basic instincts, but in an ethical way?
Gotcha.
So fascinating book, and it's often recommended to people who don't know anything about polyamory as a way to start to understand why people are choosing to have polyamorous relationships. Yeah,
polyamory is not something you should start off with by diving into the deep end. I mean, you have to kind of be prepared for the lifestyle, and there are some great ups, but the downs can kick you in the figurative nuts.
So much so, if you think about the potential for heartache with just one person, you just multiply that. The potential for joy as well, but the potential for heartache.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yeah, so that's my next one.
All right, shall I go on?
Yeah, please.
All right, I love... there are a decent amount of books that have come out lately that are kind of formatted like the next one I'm going to list here. And I'm saying this, we're trying to keep Mimsy away from the computer while we're recording here, but she sees plastic, so hey. All right, anyone. Okay, get down, you stubborn cat. You. I don't
So Mimsy is like sitting on the table and like refusing to jump down, even though Tim is pushing her.
Yeah. All right.
So now he's embracing her and sniggling her.
Yeah. Now, this book, if we want to go back into our show history, is formatted similar to Daisy Jones and the Six.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in terms of it's an interview book. And this is Live from New York, The Complete Uncensored History of Saturday Night Live by Tom Shales. And as it implies, it tells the story from the very formation of Saturday Night Live till one of the 2010 cast. It's not one that came out recently or anything like that, but tells a good portion of Saturday Night Live history. Tells the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between. The Muppets. I found out that the Muppets were in the first season of Saturday Night Live.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't mesh well. In fact, it got to the point where the book pointed out that John Belushi used to call them the mucking Fuppets.
The mucking Fuppets.
Yeah. And Frank Oz later clarified that. I read an interview with him where, he said that the cast members loved them individually, but just felt that the Muppets didn't quite mesh with what they were trying to do, and the people with the Muppets actually agreed because it was like the next year that the Muppet Show came about.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so... and it also is a great little book that details just how much of a dick Chevy Chase is. It's a wonder he got the Community job after this book came out,
It's too bad because I love him as an actor.
Yeah, he just some people are too full of themselves. Like he thinks he's the greatest thing that has ever happened to comedy, and no, not really. I mean, he was pretty funny, and if he was more humble, I think he would have a lot more to say for his career. But when you treat people bad, people end up not wanting to work with you.
Yes.
All right. What is your next one?
So my next one is The Ethical Slut by Hardy and Easton.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
No.
Oh, it's a great book. So it kind of follows on Sex at Dawn. Sex at Dawn is kind of the why, and then why of polyamory, and then the ethical slut is kind of the how of polyamory, or ethical non-monogamy at least. Mm-hmm. And within ethical non-monogamy, there are a number of different ways of doing that. And so ethical slut doesn't really... It was very early on, really, book that deals more with dealing with the societal pressure and societal conceptions of what sexuality is and should be.
Yeah.
And resisting those, and instead creating your own version of what love and relationships should look like and should be. And that's very empowering when you realize, oh, it doesn't have to be the way it's been my whole life. It could actually be better. Mm-hmm. It might be a structural problem. Let me try a different structure. Maybe that structure will be better for me. And so maybe you try an ethical non-monogamous experience or relationship, and you find that fulfilling. And then that's something you can do in your life. Or you find you don't, and it freaks you out, and you don't like it. And, I think that is a lot of monogamy culture indoctrinating people, that it's very hard to reject these lessons that we've learned our whole lives about how people are supposed to function in relationships together. Mm-hmm. It breaks all the rules. So you have to be... It's a transformation that has to happen when you grew up in monogamy culture.
It does take time because, I think I've said it on the show before, my first experience was, if I had to use an analogy, was I was like a kid going into the kitchen in the middle of the night and getting up on the counter to get some cookies off the top of the fridge. My mom comes in, catches me, but instead of punishing me, she lets me have the cookies, gets me a bowl of ice cream, and bakes me some brownies too.
Right.
And that's what it felt like at the start.
Wow. It just was so positive.
Yeah, it's just my thing, though, was just this is okay, you know, and that takes time to get used to.
Yeah.
You know, that whole idea, because to your point, yeah, it is built, we're inculcated from birth that one man and one woman are supposed to be in one relationship and blah, fuck that, as long as
and that the
communication is
relationship has to be fulfilling. That that we're all living for some relationship.
Yeah. And I think that has led people down many wrong paths when they should be focusing on their own personal happiness and then being thankful when they do have people joining along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, shall I go on with my last one?
Yes, please.
My last one here, folks, is from this particular author, one of his shorter works. But it's On Writing by Stephen King. Have you read that?
No.
Okay. It's as the title implies, it is his advice for, what people can do to be, a good writer. But primarily, it's his memoirs.
Oh, uh-huh.
Talks about but he ties it in basically to his writing, so each story from his life that he tells was about writing in some way, shape, or form, and it even got to the point to where he talked about when he was hit by a car. Remember that? Yeah, in 99, he was almost killed when a guy was driving a minivan and his dog was in the seat next to him getting into something, and the guy turned and tried to stop his dog, and then he ran over Stephen King.
Whoa.
And but that put Stephen King on kind of like a midlife crisis type of deal. I mean, like he talked about it in the book, because like his big series of books, I think I mentioned it last episode, is the Dark Tower series. Mm-hmm. And when he got run over by the car, he wasn't anywhere near close to done. Mm-hmm. But dealing with like the physical therapy it took to get back into good physical shape, he made it his mission to end up finishing those books, which he ended up doing. Thankfully. But, if you're a writer of any sort, because like I even if you are a writer and you know that you're not going to write stuff that's going to be on a bookshelf one day that people are going to buy, but you just want to be good at writing, this is one you read. Because it's not like the Elements of Style, from E.B. White or anything like that. It's told in a conversational way. And I think what I like about it most of all is that he's very clear on pointing out that this is what works for me. Just because this works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Right.
And I think a lot of writers need to hear that, because they will, like read a how-to book and then their writing shows that they've read the how-to book. It happens in Hollywood too. Like there's a series of instructional books called Save the Cat that tell you like what type of action needs to be done by this page and this page and this page. And you'll have plenty of screenplays that follow that to the letter.
Gotcha.
Which is fine, I guess. But, the whole point of those type of books is just to find your way.
Yeah. Totally. I think it's a shame when people think there's some formula.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, even if what you're writing is against the formula, at the end of the day, if you have belief in it, just put it on paper. It's not going to harm anybody by, writing out something just because, the people at the end of the day may not want to buy it. It's the art of creation is the art of writing. It's getting it down on paper. Everything else after that is the business part.
Right, exactly.
Yep. Well, anyway, we are at your final selection.
Yes, we are. And I've kind of cheated.
Uh-oh.
I have said travel books.
They're nonfiction.
They are not nonfiction, but I have included all of them.
Every single travel book ever made in the entirety of human history?
Well, I just mean that I really like travel books.
Gotcha.
And if left in a room where there are travel books and other books, I will tend to pick up the travel books and read them. Like, they're the kind of books you can pick up and put down. They're the kind of books that are really interesting to me about people and places. Mm-hmm. It's almost like popular geography.
I want to be here one day.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where that can be like good, like what they would call bathroom material.
Yeah.
The type of stuff that passed the time. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be first on my list of, oh my god, the new one's out, I gotta go buy it. But, I agree with you. I mean, seeing beautiful pictures of beautiful places with beautiful people in it.
It's great.
Yeah. Any particular ones come to mind as some of your favorites? Any particular locales that you saw that you were like, oh my god, I must one day go to this place?
Well, it's more like I've been able to plan some really great trips because of travel books that I've read. So when I went to Baja, Mexico, basically planned that whole trip, and based on, I'd never been there, so just based on information that I got on the internet and from travel books.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've been able to do that a couple times. England also, where I can just go someplace by myself that I've never been before and still find my way around and have good experiences and have nice places to stay and good
I saw it on
food.
page 27.
Yeah, similar to that, yeah.
Yep. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is a great way to kind of end things because that does show the variety in nonfiction work. Nonfiction is not just a memoir. It's not just an autobiography. It's not, which I never not quite knew the difference between the two because isn't it the same thing? If the person is writing it down, that just memoir.
I think memoir is much more like memories, whereas an autobiography is more about the person's life. Like, memoir is about the person's impressions of their life.
Gotcha.
Their experiences of their life. Whereas an autobiography is more like, in 1988, I met Sally, and Sally was awesome, and I did a bunch of work with Sally. Whereas in a memoir, it would be like, I met Sally. She had brown hair, and her eyes were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we sat in a cafe in Amsterdam for 12 hours just looking in each other's eyes. Like, that's more memoir. Does that make sense?
I guess. Yeah. All right. But, yeah, I mean, there is a ton of variety, and, there are another way to help you get to know the world around you. And, not many people end up taking advantage of that. I think we as a society get into our bubbles, and our bubbles are comfortable to us, and we don't want to break out of that bubbles because we don't know what would happen next. When I think the evidence is clear that the more we break out of the bubbles, the more that fear that comes from being out of the bubble goes away and dissipates.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, all right. We are ever closer to the professor running out of the house like a Scooby-Doo character on her way to Burning Man, Zoinks, yo!
Zoinks! To Burning Man, away!
Yeah, so I think we will wrap it up here. Did you have any thoughts for our wonderful fans at home?
Just keep reading. Just keep reading, that's all.
Yes, read. Comic books count.
Yeah, absolutely.
They definitely do. So, yeah, thank you all for listening. Each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Adieu.
Okay, bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.